The night my parents threw me out, everything felt strangely quiet, like the world was holding its breath just before something broke. Get out. My father's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence like glass. No hesitation, no doubt, just a command. I stood in the middle of the living room, frozen, my fingers curled into my sleeves as if I could hold myself together. My suitcase lay open on the floor, half filled, half forgotten, just like me. "Dad, please," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "At least listen to me." But he didn't even look at me. His eyes were fixed on Isla. She stood behind him, her face buried in Mom's shoulder, her body shaking with soft sobs. Anyone who didn't know her would think she was broken, innocent, hurt, but I knew better. She would never lie. My mother said, her tone cold and final, "You've always been jealous of her." The accusation hit harder than I expected. "Jealous?" I repeated, my voice cracking, "of my own sister. Mom, how can you even say that?" Isla sniffled and lifted her tear-streaked face. "You've always hated me," she whispered weakly. "You couldn't stand that they trusted me more." "That's not true." I stepped forward, desperation rising inside me. "I didn't steal anything. Why would I take your jewelry?" But the more I spoke, the more it seemed like I was digging my own grave. My father exhaled sharply, his patience gone. "Enough. We're not going to argue about this anymore." His words felt like a verdict. "I didn't do it," I said again, quieter this time, hoping. Just hoping that someone would hear me. No one did. He walked over, picked up my suitcase, and thrust it into my hands. The sudden weight nearly made me stumble. "You've brought shame into this house," he said. "We won't tolerate it. Shame, all because of a lie I didn't even understand yet. Please," I whispered, tears finally spilling over, "I'm your daughter." For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in my mother's eyes. But then Isla cried harder, and whatever doubt had existed disappeared. The front door swung open. Cold air rushed in, wrapping around me like a warning. "Leave," my father said. My hands shook as I stepped outside. I turned back one last time, searching their faces for anything regret, hesitation, love. But the door slammed shut before I could find it. The sound echoed in my chest, and just like that, I realized something far worse than being thrown out. I had been replaced long before I walked out that door. The first night, I didn't know where to go. I walked for hours, my suitcase dragging behind me, the sound of its wheels echoing on empty streets like a reminder that I no longer belonged anywhere. Every step felt unreal, like I would wake up any moment and find myself back in my room. But I didn't. By the time my legs gave out, I found a quiet bench under a flickering streetlight and sat down. The night air was colder than I expected, seeping into my bones, but I barely noticed. I kept staring at my phone, waiting, hoping, anything, a message from Mom, a missed call from Dad, even a single text asking, "Where are you?" Nothing came. Not that night, not the next morning, or the day after. By the second day, the silence became louder than any argument we had ever had. It wrapped around me, suffocating, making it impossible to ignore the truth. I was on my own. Hunger hit first, then exhaustion, then the quiet humiliation of realizing I had nowhere to go. I swallowed my pride and reached out to an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. It felt awkward, almost painful, but I didn't have a choice. They sent me a little money, just enough to get a cheap room in a rundown building on the edge of the city. It wasn't much, a narrow bed, a cracked mirror, a window that barely opened, but at least it had a lock. On the third day, I sold the only valuable thing I had left, a small necklace Isla had given me years ago. I almost laughed at the irony as I handed it over. The same sister who accused me of stealing had unknowingly paid for my survival. Each night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over again, her tears, their words, the way they didn't even hesitate. One question haunted me more than anything else. Why didn't they believe me? By the fourth day, something inside me changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it hardened. I stopped checking my phone every hour, stopped imagining apologies that would never come, stopped waiting for someone to fix what they had broken. Instead, I started thinking, really thinking. Isla's story had been too perfect, too convenient. Jewelry missing, blame placed on me, tears right on cue. It all felt planned. And if it was planned, then there had to be proof. By the sixth day, I stopped being the girl who was thrown out. I became the one who was looking for the truth. And when I finally found the first clue, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I smiled. Because for the first time since that night, I wasn't helpless anymore. I was in control, and I knew everything was about to change. On the seventh day, I went back, not because I missed them, not because I forgave them, but because I was ready. The house looked exactly the same. Perfect on the outside, like nothing inside had ever been broken. For a second, I stood at the gate, remembering how I had left scared, shaking, unwanted. This time, I felt none of that. I pushed the door open and walked in. My mother was the first to see me. She froze mid-step, her eyes widening as if she had seen a ghost. "You," she whispered. My father turned immediately, his expression hardening. "What are you doing here?" He snapped. "You think you can just walk back in after everything?" I didn't answer him. Instead, I walked calmly to the center of the room and placed a thick folder on the table. The sound it made was soft, but it silenced everything. "Before you say anything," I said, my voice steady, "you should look at this." Isla's face lost color instantly. That was all I needed to see. "Don't listen to her," she said quickly, stepping forward. "She's trying to twist things again. She always does this. Open it." I interrupted. My father hesitated, his eyes moving between me and Isla. For the first time, there was doubt in them. Slowly, he reached for the folder. The room felt suffocating as he flipped it open. One page, then another, then another. Each piece of paper told the same story, just not the one they had believed. Receipts from a pawn shop, signed in Isla's name. Printed messages arranging the sale, time stamps, dates, proof, real, undeniable proof. "No," my mother whispered, shaking her head as if refusing to accept what she was seeing. This can't be right." But it was. I watched their faces carefully, the confusion, the disbelief, the slow realization that settled like a heavy weight on their shoulders. Isla started crying again, but this time it didn't feel the same. I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. No one responded, not even my mother. My father's hands shook slightly as he lowered the papers. He looked at me differently now, like he didn't quite know who I was anymore. "What is all this?" he asked, his voice quieter than before. "The truth," I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. For a moment no one spoke. No accusations, no shouting, just silence. The kind of silence that comes when everything you believed collapses. They had chosen her without question. They had thrown me out without doubt. And now they had to face what that choice had cost. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt done, because the truth wasn't just something I brought back with me. It was something they would have to live with. The silence didn't break right away. It stretched across the room, heavy and suffocating, as if even the walls were waiting to see what would happen next. My mother was the first to move. Her hands trembled as she reached for the table, steadying herself like the ground beneath her had shifted. Tears slipped down her face, quiet and uncontrollable. I didn't know," she whispered. "We didn't know." Her voice cracked under the weight of it. "You didn't ask." I replied softly. The words weren't loud, but they landed harder than anything I could have shouted. She flinched, because it was true. My father stood still, the folder still in his hands. The man who had once seemed so certain, so unshakable, now looked smaller. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, as if he was struggling to say something he had never imagined he would need to say. "We made a mistake," he said finally. I shook my head gently. "No," I said, "you made a choice. The difference mattered. A mistake is an accident. A choice is something you decide, and they had decided without hesitation, without doubt, that I wasn't worth believing." Isla's quiet sobs filled the corner of the room, but no one turned to comfort her this time. Her power, the illusion she had built, was gone. She stood alone now, just like I had. My mother stepped toward me, her hands slightly raised, as if she wanted to hold me but didn't know if she was allowed. "Please," she said, her voice breaking, "come back home. We'll fix this. We'll make everything right again." Home, the word felt unfamiliar. I looked around the room. The same furniture, the same walls, the same place I had grown up in. But it didn't feel the same, because something inside me had changed. "You can't fix this," I said quietly. "You can't erase what you did." My father exhaled heavily, his voice lower now. "This is still your house. You belong here." I met his eyes. For the first time, I didn't feel like I needed his approval. "I did belong here," I said, "before you decided I didn't." The truth settled between us again, sharp and undeniable. My mother's tears fell faster. "Please don't leave again." I paused at the door. For a moment, the old me, the one who still wanted their love, their acceptance, almost turned back. But that girl had been left outside 7 days ago. And she never came back. "I already left," I said softly. Then I opened the door. This time no one pushed me, no one forced me. I walked out on my own, and behind me they didn't close the door. They just stood there, finally understanding what it felt like to lose me.